Hello, 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 hello. You guys, bear with me just one moment. I'm trying this new app that is supposed to stream effortless for me. Hopefully, it's working. I see it. I think, I might be in business. All right, all right, all right. So I'm not going to spend too much time waiting. I want to go ahead and jump into it. For those of you guys that were watching me on yesterday, you know that I began my series out of brokenness, and I want to continue on with the next part, the next segment of today. Y'all like my shirt? I love it. Um, and some of the keys that I want you to see in my shirt is I am. I am. I really love those two words. Those two words for me are very, very powerful. So come on in, share this live. Let's go ahead and get started. Um, you'll see I kind of gave you guys a little bit of a teaser about what I was going to be covering and talking about on today. And of course, I am continuing on with Out of Brokenness, but I really wanted to talk about what is brokenness, because I believe that a lot of people they just attach the word broken to anything. Oh, she's broken, he's broken. Oh, I've been broken, I've been damaged, and things like that. But I really think it's time for us to really have a discussion about what actually is brokenness, and is it something that really exists? Is it something that is impossible to defeat, to conquer? So I want to cover that on today. And the first thing that I really want to express to you guys is to be very, very, very mindful about how you title yourself, how you address yourself, how you introduce yourself to situations and also to other people. Stanicia talked earlier today about our environment, how our environment affects everything that we do and how we feel, and even in our physical body. And that's also very, very true. You can have a physical response to everything that you've been through that will present itself in the form of stress. Yesterday, I talked a little bit about migraines. And, my migraines presented for me when I was a teenager. And I really didn't understand why I was getting migraines as bad as I was getting, but it was tough. I mean, my migraines were to the point where it was debilitating for me. And they really couldn't find no medical reason as to why I was experiencing these migraines the way that I was experiencing them. But as I began to mature and grow more in wisdom and knowledge and understanding, I really began to trace my migraines back to a point in time where I really began trying to walk in my own adult world and make my own decisions and things like that. And I got to the point where I was now experiencing the weight of not only living, the weight of what I had been through, but also the weight of the decisions that I was making in my current life. And I'm gonna be quite frank with you, I wasn't making very good decisions. Okay. I wasn't making very good decisions because, again, I talked yesterday about the filtering process. My decisions were filtered. They were filtered based off of my perception of what life looked like, okay, and what people were like. So let's talk a little bit about brokenness. One thing that I've learned through trainings, through reading, through all of those different things is understanding that instead of saying that life, and I did a post, I don't know if you guys seen it, that life is happening to me versus life is happening for me. I was one of those people, and you maybe can relate, that life was happening to me. Okay. And I believe that I was at a point in life, and a lot of people are as well too, where it was like, okay, well, life is happening to me mindset. That means that there's almost an expectation that bad things were going to happen to me. There was almost an expectation that I was going to feel as if people were abandoning me, rejecting me, overlooking me, discriminating towards me, abusing me, lying on me, talking about me, all those things. Life was happening to me. And that's the way that I looked at life. So life for me wasn't necessarily an enjoyable experience. It was something that was happening to me. It's something that I had to just deal with and go through. So I really, in reality, I drugged myself through life, just drugged myself through it. It's like I grabbed my body and just went from day to day to day. But what happened is that I when you take a meal or you take meat and you decide that you want to go ahead and preserve it a little bit longer, what do? You typically put it in the freezer. Okay. It's still there. It's still food. It's still meat. It's still whatever it was when you put it in the freezer, but now it stops growing. Now it stops changing. Now it's going to stay exactly the same way that it was when you put it in the freezer. That's the way life was for me. Okay. I was not changing. I was not growing. I was not doing anything differently or expanding my horizons because life was happening to me. I was in a pause state of mind. There was nothing. Let me put it this way. I was in preservation mode. I didn't want to allow anything else to come into my life. I didn't want to allow anything else to hurt me. I didn't want to allow anything else to harm me. And a lot of times, especially with a lot of different people I've talked to, they have done the same thing. And that is what the body's natural response is to some sort of situation that we have went through. Okay. And then, in the word, it talks about we are more than conquerors. And I really want to challenge you to say that, the reason why we are more than conquerors is because Jesus already conquered for us. He already conquered for us. So, of course, we're more than conquerors. Okay. What we are is we are victorious. There are certain loads and situations that we take on ourselves that we know we have no business taking on. There's relationships that we're in that we know we have no business being in. There's people in our life that we trying to fix their problems that we know we are not qualified to fix. And the thing that I had to realize about myself was that as long as I stayed in this freezer mode, in this mode where I refused to let anyone into my bubble, I was never going to grow. I often like to say that, I was in this comfort zone. Okay. And some people will try to towel it and say, I'm an introvert. Okay. I'm an introvert. I'm an extrovert. Okay. Whatever you want to call it. Okay. So I would say I was an introvert. That's why I don't really want to deal with anybody. But in actuality, for me, I really didn't want to deal with people because I didn't know what they might do. I was scared of what they might try to do, try to say, try to twist, try to manipulate. And then when I would come out of my bubble, then these things would happen. But could it be that there was something within me that was attracting those type of situations, those type of surroundings, those type of people into my life? I'm not a big believer in law of attraction. I think that's more, of a secular world. But I do believe that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So if I am constantly thinking that people are going to hurt me, people are going to reject me, people are going to abandon me, people are going to do everything that they've done to me in my life, then would it make sense that I would begin to attract those type of people that are going to do exactly just that? Let me put it this way, because we're all changing. We're all growing, right? We're breaking through those barriers. We're breaking through those bondages, and we're coming out of our comfort zone, because we must be able to admit that nothing grows in our comfort zone. Nothing. Hey, Jennifer. Nothing grows in our comfort zone. So we have to understand, knowing that nothing grows in our comfort zone, that in order for us to be able to have the things in our life that we want, we have to be willing to step outside of our comfort zone into the land of the unknown. And that's where people get scared. People get scared to step out into the land of the unknown because it's an area that we can't control. How many of you guys can relate to the fact that you feel like you are kind of a control freak? You like to control the narrative of your story. So I want to paint a picture for you. When someone commits a crime, okay, and the police show up, the detectives show up, okay? Homicide shows up on the scene. And it may not even be a homicide, but a crime. And they show up. They're looking for evidence, okay? They're looking for a suspect or suspects. They're looking for someone to point the narrative to, okay? Who did this? What is the motive? Why did you do this? One of the things to alleviate yourself or to remove yourself from being considered a suspect is to provide an alibi. Okay, to provide an alibi. Now, if your alibi checks out, then you're good. You are now no longer considered a suspect. But if your alibi is falsified, then now you set yourself up for the consequences of falsifying where you were at and who you are connected to. So in life, a lot of times when we talk about brokenness, we are living under a false alibi. We are pretending to be someone that we were created to be. We are walking down a road that we are not required to walk down. So because we are living with a falsified identity, a case of mistaken identity fraud, or however you want to paint the picture, our alibi is getting us in trouble. Our alibi is stopping us from being able to have the freedom that we so desperately desire. So for me, I had to understand that because I am a daughter, because I consider myself, because that's what the word says, God says, I am his. I am he, she, you, I am his. So that is who I am. So because I know that I am a son or daughter, okay, that applies to anyone. If you are male, you're a son. If you are a female, you're a daughter. I am a daughter of him. Automatically, that gives me an inheritance. That gives me an inheritance. I have the freedom. And what the enemy will do, he will try to come in and create the narrative that because these things happen to you, you are enslaved. That doesn't qualify. You no longer qualified to be called a son or a daughter of God. But I would challenge you on today to understand that the devil is a liar, and he's going to try to paint a false picture, a false narrative that if you do not come out of your comfort zone, if you do not start to put on a cap of knowledge and wisdom and put a desire into your life that seeks that and surround yourself with people that are going to be pouring into you, then you will continually fall under that false alibi, that false narrative. And I did that for so many years. I thought that because these things had happened to me and because I was considered broken and damaged goods, that I was no longer qualified to be able to reap the inheritance that a daughter of God is supposed to reap. So therefore, I allowed myself to stay in captivity because I was running or conducting myself under a false alibi, under a false identity. I was subject to everything that happened on that road of mistaken identity. And hopefully that makes sense. So I had a fear of rejection. But the most powerful form of rejection was the self-rejection, because I was rejecting myself. And a lot of times because we stay a mindset of rejection, anyone can come to and say, I don't think that you really should do that. I don't think maybe that is, for you or whatever they may say to you. They may come to you with the best intentions, but because you are consistently rejecting yourself, because you're operating under a case of mistaken identity, you receive that correction, you receive that critique as a form of rejection. And so when I begin to go through the process of peeling back these layers and understanding that I had a developmental delay, My developmental delay was because of the fact that I became what I went through. And I felt that that's what I was created for. There literally was a point in time where I felt like I was created for a broken heart. I was created to be broken. And because of the fact that I didn't have the relationship that I needed to have with God, therefore not having a relationship I needed to have with myself, therefore not being able to have the relationship I needed to have with other people, I was totally lost. I was confused. Some people probably said, this girl's crazy. She's tripping. How many people have been called crazy or told that they're tripping? When you feel like what you're saying or what you're doing or what you're experiencing makes sense, but no one else understands, it's because maybe they were coming to you from a point where they were trying to help you and uplift you and encourage you, but you couldn't receive that because you didn't know what that sounded like, because you were so busy rejecting yourself. It's time for us to get to a point where we stop feeling riddled with guilt for the things that you did or the things that you did not do, or for the things that you accepted and the things that you didn't accept. I can tell you right now, there are things in my life out of my brokenness that I accepted or that I didn't accept that I should have done the opposite. Saying yes when I meant no. Saying no when I meant yes. That's something that I went through for so many years of my life. When I encountered a situation or someone that I know my answer should have been no, because of the fact that I was so busy looking to people for my validation, I told them yes. Being in situations as a single woman, okay, back in the day, when I would be approached, okay, because I was letting off that broken energy, that vulnerable energy, that gullible energy. Like I may know that you're trying to do me dirty, but because of the fact that I felt that I needed people to validate me. I needed people to tell me that I was approved. Because of that fact, I would allow myself to get into situations and relationships that I knew I had no business being in. And then when they would do the very things to me that they came to do in the first place, I would be upset. I would be hurt. I would feel destroyed or distraught. Why? When I knew that they meant me no good in the first place, why would I feel these ways? Why did I let them do that in the first place? And it goes back to the point of when I talked about in my book, I separated one thing from another. Here I am, Derica, the physical person, the mind, the body, the brain, the word, the speech. But that other part of me, that was separate. So I would use that part to get the attention, to get the love. But was it really love? And was the attention that I was getting welcomed attention? Did that attention that I was getting, or that falsified love that I was getting, did that make me feel good for a period of time? It did. But then I would leave the situation feeling more damaged and more empty than what I did when I went into the situation. So what do we do about these things? What do we actually do about those things? First of all, we have to understand who we are and whose we are. And we have to believe it. We have to believe it. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. I knew that I was created by God, but my life was evidence of the fact that I didn't believe it. I did not believe that I was truly a person that could have gone through these things and still be okay. I did not truly believe that I was a person that could have endured and experienced this shame, this guilt, this punishment, this ridicule, this rejection, this abandonment. I didn't think that I could be that person that experienced those things and then cross over and say, I am healed. I am loved. I am respected. I am accepted and not rejected. And what it took for me to be able to switch my thinking was to stop rejecting myself. I had to stop rejecting myself because the way that I was thinking and the way that I was speaking and the way that I was set up every single day, I was setting myself up for rejection, self rejection. There was a period of time, you guys, where I literally hated myself. I hated myself. I felt like I could not do anything correctly. And let me tell you the times when I felt the most hate. I felt the most hate for myself when I was single. That's when I felt the most hate for myself because my identity had been attached for so many years to someone else. To someone else. So I was lost. I did not know who I was. And so if I was not in relationship or in deep connection with someone, I felt even more rejected. I felt even more lost. I felt even more unwanted. So a lot of times a broken woman will find themselves getting into relationships that they know they shouldn't be in. They'll find themselves bouncing from relationship to relationship because they're looking for someone to fulfill the void that only God can fulfill. And that's what I was doing. I was looking to man to fulfill the void that only God could fill. And the problem with that is that that would cause me to go from one situation to the next situation to the next situation. And only thing I was doing was adding more damage to my resume. I was going in the opposite direction of the future, and I was steady going back down a road that was all too familiar to me of my past. It's like I was starting over again. Over and over and over and over again. So when I say that life was not happening for me in that situation, life was happening to me. I didn't know how to take control of my life. I didn't know how to surrender my past. I didn't know how to walk in victory. I didn't know how to do that. I felt that in order for me to walk in victory, that meant that I was married, okay, had money in the bank account, had a nice car to drive, kids were straight, going to church, praise the Lord, hallelujah. All those things was the image that spelled out victory in my life. And so whenever things would come about, these situations would come about, I would sweep them under the rug and I would just keep it moving. But I didn't realize that I wasn't moving. I wasn't actually going anywhere. I was just repeating the same cycle over and over and over and over and over again. That, my friends, is the definition of a cycle of brokenness. And I was living a cycle of brokenness. Let me tell you something. When you are truly delivered and healed from brokenness, you will stop rejecting yourself and you will start accepting God's love for you. You will start believing that you are a son or a daughter of God. You will start believing that you have an inheritance that is of royalty. You will start looking at people that approach your life, okay? You are no longer basing your identity off of the approval of someone else. You will get to the point where you say, I love people and I care about people, but I really don't care anymore. As Anicia said, I really don't care anymore what you think or what you have to say. Because see, the things that I understand from my reading, from my interpretation, and from the training that we're getting is that we can do all things. We can have all things. We can accomplish anything. But we have to believe it. We have to have faith. And even when our belief wavers, our faith should not. I didn't know what that looked like, you guys. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't believe that I was able to act as if I was a daughter of God. I didn't know, and I didn't believe that it was okay for me to act that way. And because of that, I found myself tolerating even more situations, even though I knew those situations was no good for me. I would tolerate disrespect. I would tolerate um, people taking advantage of me. I would tolerate abuse. My last marriage that I was in, um, I want to say I was married for majority of my 30s. Majority of my 30s. Gave my entire 30s pretty much. I was 39 when we finally ended the relationship. Um, 41, I believe, when the divorce was final. So I gave my entire 30s to someone that I knew was not for me. Now, true indeed, once we became married, I knew that God didn't put us together. We together. I wasn't looking for my kingdom spouse. I based things off of how he made me feel in the moment, and how I felt he was good with the kids, and things like that, and how he could add to my life and what he brought to the table. I felt that what he brought to the table made him, you know, a good dude. However, I ignored the signs. The red flags were all there. And for most of us, the red flags are there. The red flags are there, but I married him anyway. So now I've exchanged vows with this man that I have no business being with. So then my hope and my prayer was that he would get salvation through me, that God would ordain our marriage. So now I'm in bondage to this man that I had no business marrying in the first place. Why? Because I attached my identity to who I was with. If I was single, something was wrong with me. And so I would, in my life, in my history, I would not allow myself to be single for long. And by not allowing myself to be single for long, I was not able to get to learn who I was and who I am. You can't get me now to get into a relationship that I feel is not ordained by God. If he's not my kingdom spouse, we really have nothing to talk about. And that's the healed me. That's the me that respects myself. That's the me that respects my position in the kingdom of heaven. That's myself that understands that I have a calling, and that I have a purpose, and there are specific people that should be in my personal space. And there's a specific people that should not be in my personal space. That's the me that I am now. But the me that I was before was the me that married the monster when I was in my 30s, I allowed to single-handedly destroy whatever strength, whatever respect I felt that I had for myself. You guys wouldn't believe the things I tolerated with this man. You wouldn't believe the things I tolerated with this man. And when I look back on it now today, sometimes I'll admit I get mad at myself. Like, girl, what was you thinking? What was you thinking? Have you ever ended a relationship, and then once you finally got through the situation, you're like, what was I thinking? I had to have been crazy. And then I believe my biggest struggle in that was hoping and praying that as long as I was a good wife and a good person to him, that he would eventually change and he would see all the good things that I was doing. Okay. And how I was being a good wifey and all these other things, and he would eventually change and feel bad and feel convicted. That's not that's not the way that it worked for me. That's not the way that it worked for me. When I finally got out of that situation, when God finally gave me the go, I understood. After I began to peel back those layers, I began to understand how I was in a position to allow myself and my children to endure what we endured. And being at a point, once you come out of the brokenness, once you understand that what brokenness looks like, because that's really what is important as well too, I believe, is understanding what brokenness looks like. A lot of people don't even know what brokenness looks like. And once you understand what brokenness looks like, then you can start to recognize your own patterns. I had to understand what brokenness looked like. It's hard to see something that you're in. That's why they say, I'm on the outside looking in. I couldn't receive that from other people that would try to tell me, girl, I really don't think that dude means you any good. Girl, I really don't think that's the friend for you. Girl, I really don't think that you should be going to that place. I don't think it's a good look. Girl, I really don't think you should be hanging with those people. I couldn't receive that because of the insecurities that was within me. I was not in a situation where I could be corrected. I was in a situation where I constantly procrastinated. I was constantly inconsistent, even had bouts of laziness. And because of all these things that I experienced, I wasn't in a situation where I could receive any type of rebuke. I would rebuke, if that makes sense. I was angry. And if you're not careful, if you don't start to receive the rebuke and start to change the things that need to be changed and start to tear down those walls so that your heart can be penetrated and begin to change and make room for new things, then you'll find yourself sliding from a broken standpoint into a toxic standpoint. Because I played with those boundaries as well too, to the point where I was broken, and then all of a sudden I started doing things that were a little toxic as well too, right? Because we think brokenness is a victim. That's a victim. Life happened to them. And then you can move into a form of being a toxic person as well too. A toxic person is a whole nother ball game. You start doing things to destroy other people because you have been tore down and destroyed for so many years. Now you moving into a land of being a toxic person, and now you start tearing other people down. Trying to tear people's marriages down, trying to tear people's self-esteem down, trying to just tear people, tearing up homes, just doing destructive stuff just because you can. So you have to be very, very careful to get yourself checked quickly so that you can move into a form of healingness instead of brokenness. So the title of this series is Out of Brokenness, okay? We can't stay in brokenness. We have to come out of it. Because if you stay in it, all the good stuff that you're hearing, all the good stuff that's being taught to you, the training, the sermons, the preaching, the teaching, all that stuff, it's not going to penetrate the way it is meant to penetrate, because it's going to keep going through your filtered process. Like I talked about yesterday, you have to get to a point where you say, you know what? I'm over this. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. What do I have to do, God? Because I don't want to keep living this life of mistaken identity. We have to get to the point where we understand that we are not what we've been through, that we are victorious in spite of, that no weapon formed against us shall prosper, that God does not give us the spirit of fear, but of power, okay? Of power, of love, of a sound mind. We don't get the spirit of fear from God that don't come from God. And I'm telling you now, When I started to release and let those things go, the migraines that I had that was coming, that I felt like I had to take some medication and stuff for, that stuff started going away. Now, am I going to sit here and say that I never have a migraine? I am so happy and grateful that I never have a sick day in my life. When anything like that comes that is against what it is that I am calling out and speaking every single day of my life, because I didn't do it before, but I do it now, then I am likely to say, what is it that's a little off for me today? What is it that's a little off for me today? And I found that daily reading in my word, daily praying, daily repetitious speaking against the things that I've been through, against the things that I subconsciously believe about myself, will eventually reprogram my thought process so I don't automatically default back to that broken person. It's a fight to come out of it. But it's not as hard as you think it is if you allow Jesus to be the narrator of your story. But in order for him to be the narrator of your story, you have to be willing to be the hero of yours. You have to be willing to be the hero of yours. God is ready. He wants you. He wants you to understand, I love you. I have work for you to do. I got you. This isn't yours to carry. Give it to me. Let me have it. Let me ease your pain. My yoke is easy. He wants that for you. But you got to be your own hero. You got to be your own hero. And when you make a decision to be your own hero, then all these things will start trying to, you're like, shh. Now, if you had caught me a few years ago, then man, that would have tore my whole life up. But now, I only will accept the things that align with what God says I am. I only will accept the things that align with what God says I am. I am the lender and not the borrower. I am the head and not the tail. I am beloved. I am his daughter. I am prosperous. I am healed. I am wise. I am victorious. I am wealthy. I have joy. We have to start understanding when someone comes and tries to remind us of our past and what we've been through. Yeah, that's a lie. I'm no longer going to use that as my alibi. I'm going to start speaking the truth about my life, and I'm only going to accept the truth. And when you have someone in your life that is constantly trying to call you what that old you used to believe you were, it may be time to consider some distance. It may be time to consider some distance, at least until you're at a point where you're able to block that off and not let it affect your life or your thought process. Synisia talked about, she said something about a car accident. And then all of a sudden someone she knew had a car accident. And all of a sudden she started seeing car accidents everywhere. The mind is powerful. It's a powerful thing. But just like the mind can be programmed, it also can be unprogrammed. So I would challenge you on today. It's time to follow suit, complete the assignments that has been given, and let's start unprogramming so that we can be reprogrammed with the true identity of whose we are, not what we've been through. That's not our identity. Our identity is whose we are. Who and whose we are. So who does God say you are? Who does God say you are? You should make a song about it. You should make a song about it. I believe somebody did. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I am a queen. I ain't going to say the whole song, but Those are some things that I tell myself every day. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I am a queen. It just, these are things that you have to start telling yourself. And when you start telling yourself that, eventually you start believing it. And when you start believing, you start receiving it. And when you start receiving it, you start applying it. And next thing you know, you start manifesting that stuff. So in closing, in closing, I would definitely remind you to stop rejecting yourself, stop allowing other people to reject you, and start accepting yourself. Because when you start accepting yourself, then you can start accepting the love that God has for you, because He loves you. He loves you, and He wants you to realize that He loves you too. So stop rejecting yourself. Stop letting the past reject you, and you start rejecting the past. And start accepting yourself. What people say you ain't gonna be, or you ain't smart enough to do, or you ain't accomplished enough to do, forget them. Forget them. Forget them. They didn't create you. They didn't create you. And that goes for anyone. They didn't create you. God did. So if God didn't say that that's what you ain't, or that's what you are, don't believe it. Don't believe it. I'm trying to tell you, be careful what you think about, because what you think about, you become. Have a great day.